Right, Carlo, we're back. It is the 1st of March. Ooh, first
Woo!
day of the month.
Time
Uh,
flies.
yeah, I know, right? And I think we're on episode number 32, I believe, of Tourney Ground. So we are getting there. We're getting to a full year. Um, yeah, so it's been an interesting week. Lots of new and wonderful things have been happening. We will, of course, get to some spoilers and some reveals and some visions in a minute. But first of all, Carlo, we've obviously got the big announcement, the big thing um, coming today, which was the announcement of, in the UK, for all the UK viewers, of course, the Grand Tourney.
The grand tournament. Yeah.
Yes. What do you wanna say about that?
What do we want to say about that? Well, firstly, I've tried to fill today's episode with as many things as possible so that we don't have to stare into the depths of Mickey's soul when he talks about the free folk changes. So those are
Uh,
those are coming. Don't worry. I'm sure Mickey will have some time on that, but we'll try not to. We'll try and fill other things in over time so that we don't have to really feel his pain as much as it otherwise would be. But the Grand Tourney is it's been put together actually mostly by Chris Eustace, Leak Teddy, and A Song of Ice for High Stats and NRG are both involved as well. But it is A Song of Ice and Fire tournament held as part of the London GT, which has been a well-established tournament for quite a long time in UK wargaming. This is the first time that Song of Ice and Fire has been run at it, but it's a big event in the Warhammer Games Workshop calendar. Very big event for that, and a lot of other game systems going on. So it's more like a big gaming convention feel than necessarily a tournament. At the moment, it's set for the 25th and 26th of September, which, after the UK's recent announcements, with its roadmap to return from lockdown, and it's pretty. Actually, for once, we're getting one thing right, aren't we, Mickey? Which is supposedly we're quite good at vaccinating people.
I know, right?
Um, I know, crazy. That's the one thing that we can do right. It looks like that really genuinely is going to be on track this time. And never mind the date that they've given, which is, an early summer. This is way late into the summer, a long time. There's a lot of leeway there. So
Mhm.
we really do think that this tournament's actually going to be one of the big first tournaments that gets to go ahead after lockdown, which is going to be great. I really hope that internationals from EU and, maybe even further abroad, are able to commit to it.
Mhm.
I'd really love to see people from everywhere, but if not, it's still going to be the biggest event that the UK's ever held, really. I think so.
Yeah.
Absolutely looking forward to it. I'm really glad to be a part of it. It's not necessarily me running this thing. I will be there as part of the TOs running the event, but like I say, mostly down to Chris Eustace actually.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's gonna be really good. I think it's gonna be awesome. And I'll reveal that later on. That's a sneaky peek of what's coming. But yeah, so I think it's gonna be great. I think it's gonna be absolutely fantastic. I look forward to going down to it. To be honest, Carlo, and we were joking just before the stream there, weren't we? That it will probably end up me driving you down because you never drive anywhere unless you can if you can avoid it. um, but otherwise, yeah, it's gonna be a long trip for us. Obviously, living in the northeast, it's about 3 or 4 hours down to London. But we're fine.
Nowhere's far away when you live in the UK.
Exactly,
Nowhere's
exactly.
that far.
Three or
Just a
four hours
little
is like
little
the longest.
little jaunt down the motorway.
Yeah, exactly. Um,
But
yeah.
absolutely, I'm really looking forward to it. I think we could have a really great event on our hands, and the more people who sign up early and get involved early, the more we will be able to extend the event out. It is possible for us to run additional events on the Friday, and even I believe definitely the Friday night, and possibly even through into the Monday.
Hmm.
Is like how long is available. It won't cost us any extra to run events on those days, but that is based on us like having enough people for us to be able to run side events, more things that are just like possibly different rules, different things, doubles tournaments, 30-point tournaments,
Mm.
50-point, whatever you want. It'll be a really great. I can't believe how much I'm actually looking forward to just getting out there and meeting some people and just like
I know, right?
forget the games, just like sitting and talking about A Song of Ice and Fire with some people afterwards. Do you know what I mean? Just sitting around chatting, chewing the fat. It'll be great.
I genuinely can't believe that we are sitting here, Carlo, and we are actually discussing potentially, like genuinely potentially discussing that we can be back in the actual real world soon, in actual gaming, in
It's not the
actual
real world,
events.
it's still not the real world, Mickey. But it's a step towards
You're
it.
right. It's not, is it? It's not the real world, but it'll do. It'll do. That's the thing. It will do.
It'll do for now.
Um. Okay, so that's the Grand Tourney. That will be obviously being organised, as I said, by Chris Eustace, Leet Teddy on Discord, and the guys over. Well, I say the guys over. The guys here at NRG, and of course, A Song of Ice and Fire Stats, helping Chris promote and all the other things that we can do. I believe we're going to be live streaming some stuff as well. I'd have thought. I think we're going to take a setup down and be live streaming some games as well. So closer to the actual weekend, you can bet that there'll be people like myself on hand, giving out when doing what we can to get the game streamed out to you guys who can't make it across the pond to come and visit. But if you want to visit, come down, please. I know Bruce Craig was
Absolutely.
he was meant to be on a honeymoon next year, but we've already said to just cancel the wedding, cancel in fact just
Yeah.
abandon the relationship altogether. Just come across earlier.
Bring the honeymoon forward a year.
Yeah.
It's
I would
nothing.
say I would say we pay for your flights, but we won't.
Yeah, I mean, the tournament's already probably going to make a loss. let's be fair.
Yeah. All right then. Yeah, Bloodraven. Hey, a pint of beer in London with yourself would be amazing. And to be honest, going out for a pint of beer anywhere would be amazing right now. Anyway,
I mean, can you afford a pint of beer in London, Mickey?
I actually can now. I mean, but literally, complete jokes
No,
aside.
after a year of lockdown, having spent zero money forever
Yeah.
on anything except, I mean, can't even get hold of A Song of Ice and Fire minis. That's the only other thing that I used to spend money on. What the
Yeah.
hell am I supposed to spend my money on?
Yeah. And hilariously, you joke about it. I literally got a pay rise like the end of last month, so I'm sat here being like,
Woo.
I used to spend no money, and now I need to spend even more no money. It's great. No, obviously,
So
we'll be
Mickey's
there.
getting everybody around down in the London GT.
I will actually say that when we get closer to the time, anyone from overseas who is coming down can have one drink on stats. Ah,
You widened that one out for stats.
ah, yes.
Great.
Because
Thank
you never know.
you.
The thing is, if I make that promise now, we might have like 1,000 viewers come the actual GT. So no, we won't. We can hope. We can hope. Anyway, should we move on to
We
some
can all
actual
dream.
news?
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some other cool things that happened this week.
What cool things was that, Carlo? What
All right,
cool
maybe they're
thing
not cool. I don't
happened
know.
this week?
Are we ready for Free Folk?
Are
you ready for Free Folk? Or
I'm
should we
always
ease you
ready
in a
for
bit
Free
more?
Folk.
Should we talk about something else?
I'm ready for Free Folk. I'm ready for Free Folk.
You're ready for Free Folk.
If there's anything that tells me I'm ready for Free Folk, it is knowing that I am ready for Free Folk. So, Free Folk.
That Ilya's here to back you up.
Ilya is here, actually. No, obviously we've already seen a load of the visions. We've seen now, they've even said it in the article, we've seen Baratheons, we've seen Targaryens, we've seen neutrals. So this is actually, if you think of it like this, in the 7 factions that are currently in the game, if you ignore Greyjoys, this is the middle one. And the middle one, they thought, let's bring it Free Folk, which I think is fair. Certainly doing it first was probably not the best idea. Doing it in the middle seems like fair, given that they don't have access to the other stuff in the pool. It makes a bit more sense. There you go. Right, we'll move on to the stats breakdown now. No. So, I'm gonna be.
This is hard. I feel like this is a faction that I'm almost not allowed to have anything to say about. Like, this faction's been your faction for such a long time, and it's never been my faction. I always look at it from the outside, And I feel like actually, in a lot of ways, free folk is probably like that for so many people. I feel like free folk is the thing that you can't dabble in. You're either into free folk or you're not. Um, and the whispers on the grapevine is that the balancing for them was done by somebody who's not into free folk. Oh, so that kind of feels maybe like why they feel terrible. They look bad.
They do. But we'll break it down. We'll break it down because there are positives. There are
Yeah,
positives, and I'm going to talk about it. And to be honest, for those of you who have caught up with me over the last week, I know people like Craig and Ilya and people like that have chatted to me, and basically I've used them as uh, opportunities just
they've
to whine at.
consoled you.
Yeah. I've just
They've
whined at them
consoled you.
and been like,
It's
"Why is this a
been
thing?" But yeah. Right. So we'll start with the tactics cards. Right. We'll start with the tactics cards. Regroup and reform. This is not a nerf, but this is not a buff to the card either. This is a weird side grade, and actually,
very interesting card.
yes. The first bit, first of all the trigger, way better than it used to be. Start of a friendly turn rather than on activation. So that's really important. You target 2 friendly infantry units, you swap, effectively remove 4 from one and give the health to the other. So basically, you choose 2 units and you can change up to 4 health between the two. Great. After that, you may then move one attachment from one of these units to the other, replacing one model as normal and keeping usual attachment restrictions. Okay? So you can give an attachment to another unit. Talk about that in a second. Alternatively, you can switch 2 friendly attachments in the units. So if you've got an attachment in both units, you can switch them around. Right?
That's the interesting bit.
It is. That's actually the best part of the card, and I'll get onto that in a minute.
It feels like the initial use is designed to save your commander, right? That feels like it.
Yep.
You don't have to keep throwing models at your commander's unit. Instead, you can just abandon that unit and move the commander into somebody else. Get him out of there, get him into a different unit, keep him alive. Now that we know that commanders are
Relevant.
A, all on field. Free folk always were always on field, but B, they matter so much more to game modes now.
Mm-hmm. Especially with the assassination effects, and you can like effectively dodge an assassination effect. So yeah, regroup and reform is like a better trigger, and it has this cool ability. Is it a better card? No, it's not a better card. I don't even think it's worse necessarily, but it's not a better card. The big strength of regroup and reform, and a lot of players do not understand this at all when they look at free folk. The strength of regroup and reform is it used to be a heal. This is not a heal. This is actually, if you use this properly, this is actually a self-damaging effect. Right?
Yeah.
Because the key here, when you move that attachment, you replace a model in the new unit. And you don't replace where that attachment came from. So you can have you have 2 units at full strength, swapping the attachment across would actually cost you a wound where the attachment used to be. So that's important. It's actually important that you don't recognize this and don't view this as a heal. If you think that this card is a heal, you do not understand what made regroup and reform a heal before.
Absolutely.
So this is not a heal.
I think when you switch the 2 attachments, it says you switch them and nothing's lost, right?
Yeah, if you switch, then nothing.
Neutral.
Yeah.
But if you move an attachment, you take the model out of one, but when you go to place him in the other unit, it specifically says that you replace a model with him, and it doesn't say that you put a model back where the attachment left. So absolutely, it seems to be that the net model movement when you move an attachment and don't swap him for somebody else is -1 model.
Yeah, and that's actually, and specifically because it's this and then this, that happens after the healing as well, or the movement of wounds. So you're always actually down net 1 wound if you only had 1 attachment that you wanted to swap. So that is a problem, in my opinion. Not that it does that. I think that effect is fine, but that it doesn't actually heal. It's not a heal. And that is an issue because regroup and reform used to be strong because it was a heal. And actually, regroup and reform was good because it also used to affect multiple units. You could sit there as one unit and then take a little bit from everybody, one wound from each unit, which is probably not that big a deal, to then put
Yeah,
4 units plus the extra 2. You could bring half a unit back in one go. Boom. You
yeah.
cannot do that now. You are,
Yeah, the way it used to
yeah.
collect from around themselves, plus have the additional +2, it allowed you to manipulate rank structures to get people to have the right attack profiles that you needed without necessarily the others wouldn't necessarily lose. If we just took 2 models from a unit, 2 models from a unit, neither of them might drop a rank, and we can add a full rank back to a unit, plus maybe horses gave us 6. It's going to become actually a common theme across this whole deck, which is there aren't any kickers in this deck. There's no value to controlling tactic zones right here in this base deck. There is a particular zone replacement effect on horses,
We'll get to
but
that.
we've been talking thematically about how God, all these decks they only resolve around one zone. This resolves around 0 zones, and that one zone we thought was a negative, this is 0. You have nothing to aim for other than if you have Endless Horde in hand. It's a very odd deck.
It is. It is. And we'll part regroup and reform there, but I think it's a worse card, but I don't think it's much worse. The attachment
Yeah.
thing. So, and this is a theme. I'll just straight and say this now as we look at coordination tactics. I know we've already talked about this in terms of the other reveals. Regroup and reform, and the coordination tactics. This idea of attachments being relevant is an idea that I think a lot of viewers here probably already know the answer to. Piece of shit, right? Uh, Attachments are not relevant, because if attachments were relevant currently, and attachments were looking to be relevant, then adaptive and people running 1 point attachments would be all the rage, right? They're just not. Adaptive is in with the points cost of the unit. Effectively you're paying half a point for adaptive, and then you're getting a point off
Hmm.
an attachment, which is great if you can leverage that to get that point value. But unless those, and we'll get onto the attachments in a minute, unless you're getting that point value, you're not getting anything for that extra point cost. So we'll
Yeah.
come back to that. But attachments and this idea of swapping them around it's just not good within the
Cool.
gameplay. It's
Cool. In
yeah,
theory.
yeah. But it's not good in
Uh,
practice. It's just not good. I mean, if it was that good, you'd see Davos running everything all the time, right? And he has an attachment
but
save ability, and it just doesn't happen.
not to labor the card, but basically this card is either going to be incredibly situational and kind of pointless, or there's going to be a way to manipulate this card because of multiple attachments in units. Say we're talking about skin changes, we're talking about Harmer's Bannerman, we're talking about ways for us to stack multiple attachments that shouldn't normally be able to exist in a unit because of the attachment switching mechanic.
Yep.
Nothing says at the moment, as far as I can tell, FAQ wise, unless something coming along to say, no, that's not how it works. If I had Harmer, Harmer's Bannerman, and a skin changer, nothing stops me from playing 2 regrouping from reforms to turn that skin changer and Harmer's Bannerman into Harmer,
Tormund and Rattleshirt.
Tormund, and the rat. Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
now I've just got a Death Star unit, and I could have deployed that inside Cave Dweller Savages or, Fens or anything. Do you know what I mean? Right?
Mm. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But that is such a niche like corner case, and if that becomes the norm, it tells you a lot about what the free folk have become, and I don't think that's the way they intend the card to be used. Its intended use is to kind of save an attachment, but I don't think that has enough much value.
Yeah. The funny thing, of course, is that this Voltron idea, this idea of building this Voltron unit, already exists. Carlo, you've got experience with it yourself, running Stannis Rightfulair and the Bastard Girls. This tactical
Exactly.
approach, Voltron style, it can work really well. And when it goes off, what we say in the competitive end is when it goes off big. But it goes
Yeah,
off in 1 in 10 games, which is not a competitive
exactly.
viable list. Um,
That whole mentality is a very feels bad negative play experience.
yeah,
Either you hit your stride, you get what you need, you draw the amazing cards, and it all comes off, and your opponent never stood a chance. They just got steamrolled,
yep,
or it doesn't come off and you lose.
yep,
And it's just like it's the same with Same with your stone thrower. It either works or it doesn't work. And there's no tactical interaction there. It's just like, oh my god, that guy got 2 regrouping reforms in his first hand, and look what unit he ended up with. I couldn't possibly kill it. Anyway, we're laboring the first card.
But
It's
it does link with the second one. The second one, with coordination tactics, the thing we've seen before. The start of any turn, for the remainder of that turn, both units get the abilities of the other unit. Now, interestingly, it says gain any abilities on the other unit. It doesn't specify all, which does bring us into a good question of, if you share, say, raiders with whatever, it doesn't really matter. You can obviously you'll obviously gain is insignificant, but can you choose not to gain cowardly? Because gaining cowardly would be a really dumb thing to do if you're running against like Blackguard or something like that.
absolutely.
So you've got to ask yourself, what are they trying to achieve with that card? And I've played a game. So I'll straight up say this: I've already played a game of Free Folk against Targaryens using only the new stuff, except with a caveat, and I'll come to that later. I saw this ability, and the best way I was able to do this was using it to kill one of my own units for free.
Sounds powerful. I mean, that's a whole
powerful.
VP saved. You know, we
Yeah,
did talk
definitely.
about whether or not we considered the Targaryen cards powerful, that they allow you to earn a VP, and they even play a VP Gambit. But yeah, I feel like this is very intertwined with the regroup and reform. It's trying to achieve the same sort of effect, but for a just for a split second of time. It's not permanently moving these abilities, it's just letting you double them up. I feel like the concept they're going for is they're really forcing Free Folk to try and be some kind of combined arms force, right? Where look at all these different units, which we'll come on to. Look at all these different units. They're all the same price, but they all have wildly different abilities. Can you give them each other's effects to like good use? But I feel like that is such a house of cards, basically, that it won't stand up to your opponent having anything to do about it. As soon as your opponent wants to get involved, they're just going to say, okay, I'll just kill the one thing that has the abilities that I'm scared of, and all the rest won't be able to share anything that I care about. You know, like, you can keep
Back
XYZ.
to what we
I'm
were
not
saying.
interested. I killed the one unit that had the thing I cared about.
It comes back to the Voltron idea, right? The Exodius, the Voltron. You know, if you kill part of the Voltron, if you kill part of the Exodius, suddenly I don't have much. There's not much threat anymore. Yeah. It's like again, killing Stannis bastard girls before they draw attack approach, and you're just like, oh god, this game is now definitely over. And strangely enough, with Stannis's amazing win rate and amazing stats on the website, that's clearly comes to fruition a lot. Anyway, moving on.
I entered Stannis into a tournament.
You did. Actually, the last thing I want to say about coordination tactics, and this is a complete meme at this point, right? Complete and utter bloody meme. There is a kicker to this. You may immediately trigger one unused start of turn order on either of those units, except for the fact that in all the stuff we're going to see later on, there is not a single start of turn order on any of those units. So, as a result, the kicker on this card literally does nothing as it stands. So this is going to be clearly something to do with attachments that we see. Yeah. Okay. This is only also it actually loses as effect.
To be confirmed as to whether or not that part has any use.
Or if it's any good. Anyway, we'll move on. There's too many. When an enemy is performing a panic test before the dice are rolled, so it's before the dice are rolled, they suffer -1 to their roll and +1 on wound, which is, interesting, for each of your friendly units in short range, with more remaining ranks up to 3. So, for a one-time price, you can play Lannister Supremacy as a tactics card, but it takes not just the ranks of the unit that it's engaged with, but anything with more ranks in short range. This is an issue. This is an issue because if you don't kill a rank on the attack, the
Mhm.
card doesn't do anything because none of your units in range have higher ranks. Monsters don't
I'm gonna say
contribute.
cavalry.
I mean,
Could
yeah,
be
cavalry,
cavalry.
cavalry, yeah, definitely, cavalry.
That could work.
Yeah, 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 I can kill cavalry now a little bit
Yeah,
easier.
it feels a bit. It feels like a steep price to ask for what's a power. It's a powerful effect. I'm not lie.
Yeah, definitely.
Minus 3 with a +3 wounds
Mhm.
would be huge, but that is 3 units with more ranks than their opponent surrounding them. So let's really be realistic. We're talking about a -1 or a -2 at best, and a +1 or a +2
Mhm.
in terms of wounds done. And as you say, the important difficulty is that this has to come off of the back of your opponent having less ranks than you, not just equal to or less. Being in short range and having that, it seems like it seems like a lot to ask, and I think that a good player will just play this for a -1 +1 wound, -1 to the test, +1 to the wound, knowing that that is probably the best they're ever going to achieve with it.
I don't
I
think you'll
think it'll
ever
be a
get three.
trap that other people will try and keep hold of it for better, thinking that that's ever going to happen, and in reality, that's not the case often enough.
I don't think for any moment, in any way, shape, or form, that you're ever going to have three. And that's obvious from the way the game is currently played, with raiders that don't melt immediately, and with other things that don't just immediately disappear. Um, like, you're just not going to have 3 units in short range. And if you think you can, then the old distraction tactics would have worked loads, because, oh yeah, you just have 2 or 3 units engaged in melee all the time. No, you don't. If you have 2 or 3 units engaged in melee all the time, then you've won the game. This card is irrelevant.
Mhm.
And that's the thing. I do see the people in chat as well saying that the Weeper has the start of turn. He does actually. I forget the Weeper. Obviously, he kills one of his own blokes, so he does the Theon effect automatically, right? So Theon, he makes everyone in short range panic, and he might die. Weeper has an order where he makes everyone in short range, and he definitely kills one model in the unit.
Yeah. Sunday's
I just don't
saying,
care.
okay, but why don't we just use the Thens to pull cavalry into a bubble and then pop off the card? But we'll come to it. But taunt just doesn't work on cavalry.
No,
It just doesn't work.
it just doesn't
Like
work unless it could be the
it
way that the
doesn't
game
work
is
on
currently played.
cavalry. That's its sad moment.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on, diversion tactics. This card, when I read the title of this card, I thought, oh, cool, awesome. Base deck, diversion tactics, awesome. Then I read the card and I wanted to shoot myself in the head. After an enemy unit completes a melee attack, if you get shot, you can't play diversion tactics. There's a problem. If the defender has already activated this round, target one other friendly unit in long range and it performs a maneuver action. So they made diversion tactics worse by making it melee only. They then made it worse by making not a march if you control horses. They then made it worse by saying you only get to play the card, or the card only does anything, I should say, if you've already activated on the unit that was just attacked. This, I know how this card is supposed to work. I do know exactly how this card is supposed to work. Carlo, your thoughts?
This card is just. This card is. Didn't you learn anything from the Baratheon deck? You can't give a card with like X trigger and then just like add like 3 more levels of like 3 more layers of difficulty and stipulation, and you must also, the person must also only have exactly 3 models in the unit, and they must be within 12 inches of another unit that has exactly 9 models. It's like
Yeah,
the amount of hoops that you're forcing the player to jump through is just degrading the value of the deck. There's yes, some cards are too easy to just,
yeah,
okay, this seems to be the biggest case of you don't get free actions. You don't just get to do a maneuver because you've been attacked. But like the amount of layers that you're adding to the trigger without it even being part of the trigger is what made the Baratheon deck, I would say bad, but actually just like disliked. It's just not liked by players, Baratheon players and other players, because the effect is powerful. If you manage to meet these conditions, it's very powerful. But any good player just is just like, I'm not going to let you meet those conditions. Like I have a choice in this matter too. You've activated. All right, I'm not going to attack you. I'll attack somebody else. And you're just like, well, what do I do about this?
I'm gonna come on to
And so
this.
it's frustrating.
I'm going to come onto this again because it fits in with a lot of the other tactics decks. And for those of you who thought Free Folk were going to be a negative play experience, or the negative play experience of playing against Free Folk was going to disappear, I think you're completely wrong. And I'm going to explain why in a minute. But we'll get to there. And it is relevant to this next card, Overwhelming Assault. When a friendly unit is performing a melee attack before rolling attack dice, if the attacker has more remaining ranks than the defender, choose one. And if the defender is engaged by 2 or more enemies, choose one. You can choose both 2 if both requirements are met. So this is basically the old group assault, but instead of just getting both on one condition, you now have to have 2 conditions. And you can get a reroll, a crit blow, or a sundering. So it's the crit blow and sundering, which was what the old group assault used to offer, and the third option of getting a charge reroll or an attack reroll. I like this card. It has the stipulation of group assault still for one part, and it has the second part of the remaining ranks. The problem again is that you're never. This is not an Alpha Strike card. This is not an Alpha Strike card. You basically can never play this unless you've already softened a unit up on the charge.
Yeah.
So this is your 1-2 punch, right? You send one unit in to soften them up, and it's the second punch that comes in really hard and finishes off the unit. Just a quick
Absolutely.
reminder, 1-2 punches like that with 2 units, not only are they not very useful in the game, that's just situations like that literally just don't come up at the competitive level because you just block them from doing it. You can movement block people. It's a thing. And second of all, right, Free Folk, which we'll get onto in a minute, they really need that reroll.
They got a little bit more expensive as well.
Yeah, they did. So they're not even going to outnumber their opponents that much. Again, we'll come on to that in a minute. Anyway, Overwhelming Assault, I do think it's a good card, but again, there is something there that I'm not happy with. And I'm going to talk about this thing when we look at the next card as well, Surrounded and Exposed. This actually just made me sad. This made me sad because Surrounded and Exposed was not a powerful card. And when I say not a powerful card, it was a very powerful card, but for a very short period of time. The turn-off abilities for 1 turn, and then potentially adding a token on. Like, this ability, for players who knew what they were doing, Surrounded and Exposed was what I would call a high skill cap card, right? You used to really be like, now is the time I can get an advantage, and now is the time that I can make the play, and this is what you would use to do it with. And it wasn't game swinging. That's the thing. It wasn't a game swinging thing. It was, now is an opportunity to get some form of an advantage going.
Yeah.
This
to start the ball rolling, to start to leverage an advantage, not to end the game.
Yes. This card, comparatively, is just crap. And I'm not even gonna sugarcoat that for people. This is shite. Right? Start of any turn, sure, great trigger. Target 1 enemy unit. For each of your friendly units in short range with more remaining ranks than the enemy, they gain 1 condition
that kicker
token.
Again. That additional requirement just feels painful.
A unit.
Why does everything have to have more ranks? Like, why can't it just be for each enemy within short range?
You know that
we're back to, you're gonna play this for 1 condition token.
Yeah.
You know, you'll hold on to it for far too long and then eventually achieve 2, maybe, if you're really lucky. And that's a waste of time.
And this is where I say that the really unhappy thing, right? We haven't seen Trappers. Trappers, without going into the units yet, we haven't seen Trappers yet, guys.
Yeah.
These cards are 100% all playable on 2 facts. Two very important facts for free folk. Number one, mammoths exist in their current form. Yes, if you hated playing against mammoths, they are still going to exist in 2021 exactly like they are, as a prediction. We don't know that, they haven't been revealed, but 100% chance, I'm convinced that mammoths are going to exist like we've already seen them. Because that is the only way that you can make headway. You literally have a battering ram. Second point, if mammoths exist in the current form, guess what you're going to see in basically every single free folk list? In order just to enable the deck. Probably a mammoth.
No, they're limited.
Yeah, they're limited, right?
They're limited to 2, Mickey. It's fine.
They're limited to 2. One in each list. You're going to see a mammoth in every list. I am actually almost convinced. And if you're not going to see a mammoth, remember those auto wounds that trappers used to do? What's the bet that they still do that? I've predicted on stream before, said it. I think they're going to do a wound per rank, because that is what they've done with literally every other D3 ability in the game. And that means, guess what? You're going to be losing ranks to trappers, just like you currently do. It's just the same game in order to enable these cards. And if those things exist, then when you lose to free folk, guess what it's going to be? It's going to be, I lost because I took a load of auto wounds on the opening. And then it enabled everything. Is that what people want to do?
All of these cards can be of use if you can auto wound the way you currently auto wound in free folk. You auto wound because they moved, and you auto wound because you're trampled. And this deck plays into that mechanic and says that's the only way you can play. Like, currently free folk have other ways to play, but that's already the most powerful way to play them. Unless there's huge changes, and Terra's predicting trappers are 5 points without insignificant, and they do hits, not wounds. I mean, honestly, based on the absolute knee-jerk reactions and overcompensations that they seem to be doing right now, which is things are currently bad, they're just absolutely turning them up to 15. They're not even turning them up to 10 or 11. They're turning them up to 15. Targs absolutely through the roof. You know, like Lannister Guardsmen, they don't get played. All right, turn them up to turn them up to max. Jamie, worst commander, never played in Lannisters. All right, give him some absolutely amazing cards. Oh, what's that? Free folk are powerful. Destroy them. Just wipe them. You know what I mean? Like, it seems that they're wildly overcompensating for what is current balance issues.
Yes.
So that could happen to trappers based on the fact that they are currently the most disliked and spammed unit possibly in the competitive scene. You know, like, there are a multitude of things that Starks do. There's Mother of Dragons, but like, if there were one thing people would point at, it's probably trappers, right? For a long time, they've been a bane.
Yeah, definitely agree. So there you go, guys. If you guys thought that it would make free folk like more fun and more fun for free folk players, I actually think that as a free folk player, I'm not that disappointed with what this tells me is going to be coming in the mammoths and the shape of the trappers and maybe even giants, right? What I'm telling you is, if you thought that this play experience would be more fun to see these variations of units on the board from free folk, well, you're wrong. Sorry, the experience just got worse for you.
We're not supposed to tell people they're wrong, Mickey.
I know, but
we provide stats. We provide stats.
We do.
Tell them those things.
I know, but like, what we can say.
Who knows? We haven't seen the full picture as always. But the point is we'll come on to the units now. But if the other units in Free Folk aren't better than these units, then the faction's in a really bad place. And if the other units are better than these units,
these are just never going to see play.
Why aren't you fielding them? Why are you fielding these units? So it's I can see why people are unhappy. You know, like, all I can say is Free Folk have had their moment in the sun. What did you expect? Did you still think you were going to be one of the best factions? Well,
no, definitely not. The funny thing is, I can very easily imagine that we are still one of the best factions, but it will be even a worse play experience for our opponents. And if we're not one of the best factions, I think we're going to be absolute dog trashed here. And I think that's the weird thing. If depending on where they draw this line, it's going to go one or two ways. We didn't talk about the last card, the Endless Horde. I I read this card and I was like, okay, why? Um, I don't like this for one reason and one reason purely. When a friendly claims forces, you get to put a fresh unit of raiders on the board, literally a fresh unit of raiders on the board, or a previously destroyed units, just like it was, within long range of a friendly table edge, so 2 inches more than deployment. It's not even wholly on it, it just says fully within. I do apologize. It does say fully
Yeah.
within. So basically, it's your deployment range in most game modes plus 2 inches, which is marginal difference really. It could be important, and attachments aren't included. The usual. It's the old Endless Horde with this extra thing. They've limited it to only horses. That comes with its own issue. And you can also freely deploy raider units. Now, the annoying thing here, like, I like the idea. I like the idea that you can actually have more units or more points in your army, effectively, than you would normally be allowed.
Mm-hmm.
But that only works if, depending on when this card comes up and how this card is played in the game, right? If you play this turn 1, you've literally just got a 4-point unit for free, effectively.
Yeah.
Now,
Well, no. I
not
mean,
quite. Yeah, not quite. But,
three
yeah,
points. They're still only worth 3 points.
yeah.
If anything, they're probably worth 2 points.
What I don't like about this, actually, is the hobby aspect. Right? I don't like this in the hobby
Oh,
aspect.
come off it,
No,
Mickey.
no, no.
No, have you seen Raiders? They're absolutely dog shit. Everybody's got 2 units of Raiders from their starter box, or probably 4 from 2 starter box, and nobody's gonna field them. They're gonna
Yeah,
have a use. They're gonna have some use, Mickey. They're
I.
crap.
But
Nobody's
that's.
paying 4 points for them.
But
They're
can you
rubbish.
not? Can you not just see what you've just said? They've had to put a card in the deck to make you play Raiders because you won't pick them if you know what you're doing. Like
Yeah,
that's
but like,
bad.
you know.
um,
But but
no,
but then- but don't pretend that this is a modeler's
no, no,
perspective.
no, no,
Oh
no, no. So
no,
no,
I'm
no, no,
never gonna be able to have enough Raiders to put on there.
no.
Oh,
That's
as
not what I
if
said. That's not
nobody
actually what I
wants the
said.
bloody Raiders anymore. They've gone from being like one of the best units in the whole game to
Yeah.
being utter crap. Like they've just. I mean, if you thought that Cutthroats got kicked, like, God, they have absolutely smashed in what a raider is supposed to do and be valuable for, and they've just left them being just being panic bait. They're just panic bait. Like
Yeah. So you
is
didn't let me get to my
is
point
rough.
from the hobby
No,
perspective,
I
right?
didn't. I
Right.
didn't.
The actual hobby
Just
perspective.
get your free unit of raiders on the board and be happy.
No, no, no. So the reason I'm kind of frustrated is that the current starter comes with 2 raiders in it, which means if you field a raider in your starting composition, you literally can't play this card with the starter deck, with the starter box anymore, because
Yeah,
you
but
don't have any spare
you don't
raiders.
have to field two anymore, Mickey. You don't have to field them in pairs, so that's a big win,
Yeah,
right?
but I think for me, from a starter's perspective, you literally basically can't play Free Folk with the starter box anymore. That's what I'm actually trying to say. And actually,
Yeah,
that's
it
an
is
issue.
tough.
That's actually an issue if you can't play the faction with what you get in the starter box because one of your cards doesn't do anything, and yet for everyone else who's bought something, it works for them. Like that. That's a division point that people don't recognize. Now, yes, I understand for
Right.
experienced players, it's not an issue.
That's a slippery slope to pay to win, right?
It is. It is a slippery slope to pay to win, and I just thought I'd mention that because I think everyone's pushed over that a little bit. But you literally can't play a 30-point army out the box anymore, really. It's a lot. It's not great, personally. Also, it only on horses. They changed it away from coming inactivated or unactivated, always unactivated, but only on horses. And we saw a card last week called Field Control. This card is completely irrelevant to Targaryens. They can just ignore this card completely because they have their own card. And if they have field control, they'll just play it after you've played Endless Horde, and you'll go, well, that was a complete waste of my card and my NCU activation. Alternatively, they won't have it, and you'll be like, way! And whether or not they have it is a complete and utter gambit. I hate this. I absolutely hate it. I've never seen a counterplot.
Yeah.
I've never seen an automatic counterplot enter the game that we've just seen field control enter. That's what it is, an automatic counterplot for this card.
Overall, what I hate is that they've taken very much opposite to what the Targaryens did. Targaryens went from being a starter box that didn't do enough to being a great compact starter box army, a great way to start the game. It feels like Free Folk starter box, like it was never the easiest entry into the game, because you needed more models, like and the giants weren't really pulling their weight. Like generally considered you picked up 2 starters before you were going anywhere, but the Free Folk starter just seems to do nothing for you now. I feel like it's going to be a really rough entry into the game for people, and I think that that's gonna cause, that's not good. The starter boxes should be letting you into the game in a really nice way. And so for everything great I said about the Targaryen changes in terms of their starter box, it's completely the opposite for Free Folk. They're gonna have a tough time. You're gonna feel like whether it's real or not, whether it matters that you don't have that raider unit to put on the board, or whether you were better saving it to redeploy a unit or something like that. But if you get it in your starter hand, you're gonna feel like, why haven't I got a raider unit to deploy? You're gonna be annoyed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the kind of things that we've got to try and avoid, or they should be trying to avoid. And so I feel really sad for Free Folk at the moment.
Yeah. We'll come on to the
It's not
units
me.
though.
I don't care. I don't play them. I don't. I've never had any real. Nothing about them really interests me. But yeah, I feel bad for them.
We'll move on to the units though, because the units actually things start to look up a little bit, right? The Thens. We start with Thens. They've had the usual, I say the usual nerf. Basically, if you used to have 8 dice on top ranks, you've gone down to 7, right? That's the nerf. That's barely worth mentioning.
Yep.
They still hit on 4s. They used to hit on 4s anyway, which is what made them difficult to justify. So, that's not changed. They've got armor 4, they're morale 6, which I think is what they had anyway. They lost set for charge for being reduced a point, and they got the new version of Taunt. So it's like all the things we've seen. It's a morale check, but it's -1 for each remaining rank in the Then unit. So it's a -3 check, -2, -1. And that's
So it
it.
got better,
It did get better.
but
It's a better
like
unit. It is actually
maybe,
objectively a better unit.
maybe we will start to see it become viable based on that negative that it puts out.
Yeah.
But straight away, like people get it conceptually get it so wrong, which is everybody thinks, nice, I'll draw in your heavy hitting cavalry into my unit, right? That is everybody's instinctive thought. Brilliant, look what I can do to your cavalry. It doesn't work on cavalry, because I do my maneuver and your taunt, they happen simultaneously. I get to do my maneuver first, and I can just make sure that I no longer have line of sight to you. And as long as I don't have line of sight to you, I'm not a viable charge target, and therefore you can't taunt me. And so maybe we will start to see some use against infantry. Maybe even it will have use against ranged units. Like, yeah, it could be really useful and powerful against some ranged units. March right up to it and then force it to charge you.
Hmm.
But still don't see it myself. The unit has got better, right?
Yeah, it has.
It dropped a point and gave up an ability which cost a point. And I do think that that's generally an upgrade. We'll talk about, that's to again coming back to this idea that attachments aren't worth it. We're going to see that we can have this ability back for a point, but we don't want it back. Like,
Not really.
basically, I'd rather be a point cheaper and not have the ability, please, because you get more for putting 12 models on the board than you do for what abilities they have.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
very true.
The unit could have, all of these 4 units are going to be so carefully weighed against each other. This could be playable. I don't think it's the most playable of the 4.
I think what you're supposed to do, going back to this, is I think you're supposed to activate this unit early, putting it in a position where your opponent then has to think about it, and then you throw a cat among the pigeons, as you say, taunt out like a ranged unit, and then when the ranged unit attacks you in melee, you play diversion tactics because the Thens have already activated. They've been attacked by a melee attack, and then you can diversion tactics a unit into a position where you can then pounce on the archers on your activation. I think that's how it's supposed to work. I think that's how they want that to be
That's
played.
brilliant theory.
But my argument would be take current Thens for 6 points, make their order automatic, and give them the current deck that you give free folk. Automatic, so they automatically have to charge you. Do you genuinely think that people would take that and use it consistently in free folk? And I actually would argue probably not. You could make this order automatic, and I still don't think it will be playable now. So what makes me think it's going to be playable then? You know? And that's because at the okay, so me and Carlo look at this from a competitive end in general, except when I talk about hobby and starter boxes and things. You know,
that's when we make it a really confusing argument.
Yeah,
exactly. You just throw in other things.
I know, right? Things that aren't competitive. But at the competitive level, taunt just doesn't work because people just position taunt doesn't work. Like that's why Thens are bad, because it's got nothing to do with the fact that they might pass the test. It's just they just position so they don't have to charge you. You know, it's done. There's no gap there to charge into. Oh well, I can't charge you as a legal target, so I can do whatever I want. So yeah, Thens, throw them away. And yeah, they're basically Stormcrow mercenaries as they exist right now. Exactly the same as Stormcrow mercenaries, with one better morale, I think.
Yeah.
And without the adaptive keyword. And thingy buy coin.
Yeah. So yeah, you've gained taunt, but you can't pick any 1 point attachment that you want for free. So
which will work really well in free folk in an attachment based game.
Would you have bought an attachment for 1 point that gave taunt? I wouldn't.
And the worrying thing is this is obviously the most defensive unit in the free folk that we see at the moment on a 4+6 morale, and that's good. Like that's not a bad stat line. That's a Starksworn Sword stat line, and that's my most defensive unit. Sad face. Anyway, moving on to the Spearwives. Now the Spearwives are better. Now they're a point less, sure. They're a point more, sorry, which means they have to get buffed. They've had some changes that make them like worse in some areas, better in others. I will straight up say that I am probably one of the only free folk players out here in the competitive scene right now, and I know Michael Rumsbum does it as well with his lists. We run Spearwives because we see the innate value that Spearwives offer us in the free folk matchups, in the way that you want to play the game, and in what you're trying to achieve. Spearwives are actually already good, right? At 4 points. They've made them a point more. They have made them better. Spear Toss losing its dice and losing a 3 dice, I think, on the Spear Toss, because it used to be the same as the melee attack, and losing a dice from the Spear as well, and losing Sundering, these all hurt the Spearwives. They really do, actually. The main reason I used to bring them was Sundering. But they gain Charging Volley. That's good. It's not as good as it used to be on, well, the thing that we know it on, Bolton Bastard Girls, because the Bastard Girls are long range, right? The Bastard Girls also have much better morale, so they were unlikely to die in one shot. Although one-shotting, of course, now... Well, one-shotting, as we would call it, is gone. One-shotting, as Simon call it, still exists. I don't understand their logic at all. But hey-ho, we'll, you know... Oh, we want to get rid of one-shotting.
Rank, isn't it?
Yeah. Anyway.
On 2 rank.
They do have this cool ability, though, Coordinated Assault, which has actually got nothing to do with coordination whatsoever. And it's just, if they get an extra hit for each remaining rank in the unit when they charge. That's good. That is good. Like that's a 9 dice attack. It's effectively a 9 potential hit attack on the charge of Spearwives, having just shot with 4 dice on 4+, and then charged in with Charging Volley. This is a good unit for 5 points.
Yeah. I mean, it's a poor man's Bottom Bastard Girls.
Yeah.
The Bottom Bastard Girls are a strong unit at 7 points, right?
Yeah.
We've gone down to 5 points. We got a save. Who cares? Yeah, our morale's worse, they probably amount to us losing models slightly quicker. The +1 save really doesn't do as much as the -2 morale on that.
Mhm.
Got the same range profile pretty much, with that 444, but that short range, like you say, is gonna hurt. But like bombastic girls, they're not necessarily long bomb charging. Most people like to charge when it's a guarantee.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we can only do this from 8 inches away. That can be a problem at times. That the bottom bastard girls can take it on from 9 or 10 is quite important.
Mhm.
That's kind of the range where your opponent probably doesn't want to charge you, but 8 definitely feels like something that you can charge into.
Yeah.
It becomes more important because who's going to dump their unit 8 inches away from a spearwife unit and let itself get charging volleyed? Overall, though, it seems pretty powerful. It seems a pretty good unit at 5 points. I
Yep.
think there is good value there. You're right that the loss of Sundering does hurt. There are some ways to get it back.
Yep.
It can pump out a lot of hits. The big question is whether or not those hits are going to do much. That's going to depend massively on your target,
Yeah.
right?
Definitely.
Throw that into things. Throw that into the front of a 3+ save. Your opponent's like, I don't care. Throw as many dice as you want. I don't care.
Yeah.
Put that
100%.
into an equally aggressive or weak unit. It can have great value.
Yeah.
These seem better than Thens. They seem playable.
So,
They
Carlo,
may be the thing that gets semi-spammed.
they're both 5 points. So, if you know anything about how Song of Ice and Fires worked previously, unless the two units are considerably different in what they offer, and the offering such a different way and such a different effect that you need both and access to both, what you end up happening is the guardsman versus poor fellows, right? What happens is everyone plays guardsman and go, oh, guardsmen are okay, and then poor fellows come around and they're like, but they're better, and
They're
so
just slightly better, just a tiny bit better.
yep, and
And all of
guardsmen
a sudden, all you see is poor
disappeared.
fellows, and you never see guardsmen.
Guardsmen basically disappeared from competitive lists. Basically, they do exist every now and then, but not in good lists. Not in the actual tournament
Yeah.
lists. So yeah, I think this is going to happen here. And we move on to the next unit that follows a bone, and it's the same case. It's another 5-point unit, this time offering us a different flavour. The attack profile is exactly the same as the Thens. The movement is the same. The morale is 7, like we saw on the Spearwives. The save is 5, like we see on the Spearwives. They're all the same thing. They just come with different keywords and abilities. In this case, we get Vicious, and we also get the new version of Horrific Visage. Horrific Visage is okay. I think the new Horrific Visage is a good ability. Vicious on 4+ with 7 dice is fine. There you go. That's that unit.
Yeah, it's a poor man's Bolton Blackguard. It's like we're just cut rate versions of neutrals right now, right?
Yep.
Yeah, you've even got Vicious the same way they do. You've not got the 3+ save,
But
right?
you gain a
That's
movement
what
for it. You
really makes Bolton
trade
Blackguard kind of dangerous.
the 2 armor and the 1 morale for a movement point instead.
Yeah,
And an extra
yeah,
dice on top ranks, I think.
1 point of cost. Yeah,
Yeah.
not terrible, but
Good comparison.
you've not got the same you've not got the same, like, what's the word? Like grinding. You got not got the same staying power. You not got the same effect of like this combat is gonna be difficult for your opponent.
Mhm.
All these units look absolutely terrified of ranged attacks. They look terrified of Stark Bowman. Even if Stark Bowman change a bit, but like looks like so far from what we've seen from ranged units is that they hit on a 3+, rolling about 7 dice. That doesn't seem to be too killy. That's just going to be shredding these units.
Yep, definitely. We move on to the next unit, and this unit is like, I hate this unit because it's good. It's a good unit, and I hate it because of this unit. Right, 6 movement, great. 6, 7, 8 profile, ascending profile like we see on Berserkers. 6 armor, 4+ morale, same to what we see in Cave Dweller Savages currently. And then Frenzied Swings. It gets +1 to hit for each of its missing ranks. which is potentially very
Mhm.
strong. It also gains Sundering, and it also gains the ability after completing this attack. This unit suffers 1 wound for each attack die roll of a 1.
Poor man's berserkers. Like we're everybody's poor man here. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
We're just
they're
a
poor
little bit
man's berserkers.
cheaper
They
and quite a bit worse.
this is So this is fine, right? This is fine. They gain the sundering that the berserkers don't have. They don't have the morale scaling like the berserkers have, where they basically take only 1 wound on a D3, assuming no other modifiers, 1 rank. But this thing where they kill themselves is just like
You don't like it. I don't care that much about it. I'm not so. I don't care that much about the wands.
I do.
You're really dead set against it.
I
We
do
talked
care
about it
about
for a
it,
long time.
and I'll tell you
I
why. I'll tell you why.
But I mean, like this unit can be rolling 8 attacks, hitting on 2+ when it's on its last rank. That's really dangerous. We've seen that like berserkers make that kind of thing really, really powerful.
Yep.
Yeah, you might die. You could get unlucky and die. The extremes are bad. And I know what you're gonna say, which is weaken tokens, right? Yes, 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 yes. Weaken tokens are the natural worst enemies of these cave dweller savages. And anybody who knows what they're doing, as soon as they see cave dweller savage, will just be passing out weaken tokens like they're candy. But
It
still
actually
think
goes
that the
as
unit is pretty good for 5 points.
So it goes a step further. I do agree, it is good unit. Like this is what I'm saying. It is a good unit, but it's where the feels bad man comes in even further. Is that if this goes over the changes to terrain, it's automatically lose rerolls on charges if you hit certain pieces of terrain. Imagine having a weakened unit on
Mm.
a cave dweller unit that charges. It rolls a couple of ones, maybe doesn't get to do the attack reroll because it went through some bad terrain, and then you drop the weaken token and it rolls a couple more ones, which is not unlikely to happen. You can be doing 3 or 4 wounds to yourself, which bearing in mind if you're doing 3 or 4 wounds to yourself, you're only getting 3 or 4 hits on the enemy as well. So you actually, aside from the panic test, which they don't modify, you're doing the same number of wounds to your enemy as you are to yourself.
Yeah, okay.
That
So
doesn't work for one reason, Carlo. Where are my heals? I don't have any.
you
I
left
don't
them at
have.
home. You left them in the old deck, all
I
right?
know we left them in the
Okay.
old deck.
It's like the only thing I don't like about them, the thing I don't like about them is that this self-killing mechanic is entirely anti-synergistic with the rest of the deck, which says I have to have more ranks than you to get all of these effects. If I want to
Yeah.
do good stuff, I have to have high ranks. And if I'm going to start shedding ranks just to be able to do damage, then like I don't like the way those two are like looking at each other and not working together. I
It,
think that cave dwellers could be powerful,
I think they are. I think they are.
maybe. And I
I
think
really
that the
think they are.
sundering is quite important to the faction and may well be one of the things that you start passing out with coordination tactics. Um, Again, we're back to this idea. Can I give sundering but not the kill myself on ones? Like,
Yeah. I just
can I
yeah.
have some of the abilities but not all of them, please?
But because it's under one
Big
frenzied
question.
swing ability, the question is, do you even gain that? Um, is it the frenzied swings ability that you gain, not the actual individual components of it? No. So the thing that gets me here, and this is actually now that we've summarized all the units, Carlo, what was the best to hit number that we had?
2+.
If Cave Dollars and Dead 2+, base 4 line.
4
Yeah,
plus. 4
base
plus to
4+.
hit. 4s to hit. Across
Remember
the
all those
board.
abilities, those current abilities that we've already seen in Mummers, Howland, Siri Farrell used to have it, someone else has got it, I think, right? They give you -1 to hit, some of which stack. There's a good chance on some units that these things have to face that they'll be hitting on 6s.
Yeah.
And that's actually, aside from, I mean,
Ah,
we don't get,
That's
there's
feels
no
bad.
+1
That
to
feels
hit.
bad, man.
And
I'm
that
telling
brings,
you. I'm telling you. Minus to hit. Minus to hit is the new meta.
it
Minus to
could well
hit.
be.
Minus to hit is minus the hit and passive reflection of damage. Horrific Visage, Lannister Supremacy,
Cave Dweller just...
Distract,
Oh,
Agile, whatever they're called. Like,
Carlo.
they're
This is great. I can charge a unit of Cave Dweller Savages in, right? With 4+ to hit, but then he's going to have like 6+ to hit, maybe with no rerolls, maybe with a weaken token as well, right? I'm hitting on 6s. I'm going to throw all these dice at my enemy and go, yeah, I didn't get any hits because I got a couple of hits, and then I'm going to reroll them. Maybe I get 1 hit, maybe I rolled like 2 or 3 self wounds. Brilliant. Okay, so you take 1 save, and I've taken 3 wounds, and then you play your card or you play your ability that makes me take the number of hits equal to the number of misses I have. And with my 6+ save, I'm now going to take another 6 or 7 hits. I've just nearly killed my own unit charging you.
all right, but you deserve to, Mickey.
Yeah, I deserve to. I deserve to.
A, you're a filthy 3-folk player,
Yeah.
and B, you've made a stupid mistake.
Yeah, I've made a stupid mistake. But people are gonna do that. I can see people doing that though, at like lower levels, and it's
bad.
That's negative play experience if I've ever seen one.
Yeah.
Move on to the attachments then. I know we've been here for a while.
Very similar. It's a very similar effect, which is going to come up, which is basically when the very first base box came out, the community response from people who were middling players, they hadn't figured out the game yet, was that Lannister Guardsmen were too good, right? And that's because they were charging them in the front and getting absolutely wrecked by Lannister supremacy, and they were taking more damage than they were doing when they attacked. Also, they were throwing in, this was the base box. They were throwing in Stark Sworn Swords. They were using Stark Fury, and they were taking 6 models off themselves and doing 4 to their opponent because the guardsman kicked in and made an auto pass of the check, right?
Yeah.
And okay, look, those units still exist, and Lannister Guardsmen don't get played, and Stark Sworn Swords do get played because the Stark Sworn Swords have a place, they have value, loads of other things are going on. But this reflection of damage and taking an attack that you think is going to go well and it ends up resulting in a massive net negative to you. I don't mean I attacked and did nothing and then you attacked and hurt me. I mean, I attacked and I died and you didn't die. It's actually always been one of the most feels bad things that people have said about this game. People have always been like, I don't understand this game when things like that happen. So
yeah, it's actually turned people away from the game, right?
Yeah, that's the nervous part about the Cave Dweller Savages. I think a lot of people are going to try them, do something, not tactically entirely sound, and get absolutely ruined for it, and then they'll never play them again.
I
think that they're that bad a unit.
I got to use them on 1 wound, and it was hilarious because I played the coordination tactics to give them insignificant, and then I attacked a unit and I rolled 2 1s with 1 wound left, and I was like, I've killed myself, but I gave myself insignificant, so I didn't give up a victory point, killing my own unit. Great. Anyway, it meant that Drogo could then go on and kill the unit that gave it coordination tactics because he didn't even have to activate to kill me because I was already dead. Yeah. Activation efficiency for your opponent is always a thing, and giving your opponent activation efficiency is never a good thing. So, we move on to the attachments. Raid leaders. We've seen these already. +1 to hit and +1 attack dice. Get this right.
Skipped over Free Folk Raiders.
Oh, we did. I mean, they're there. They're still there. They're the same as they were before.
In the entire jigsaw puzzle, Mickey. How did we not look at the Raiders?
Do you know what confuses me about Raiders, right? The adaptive is on this back side and not the front side of the card like it is on the other cards. Remember? Yeah, they've changed where adaptive is on the cards. Hey, anyway, that's what we have to say about them. Raid leaders then. we assume at this point, because it doesn't actually say this, which is quite important. I don't think it says this anywhere in the article at all. But it is assumed... Oh no, it does actually say 1 point attachment. Whew. Yes, not saying that these are all the 1 point... Yes, right. So these are all 1 point attachments. God, I worried myself there. Yes, these are 1 point attachments. Raid leader. +1 to hit and +1 attack dice on enemies that are engaged with this unit and at least one other friendly unit. So basically it's the gang up effect, but with +1 attack dice as well. Okay. Champion of Bone. Enemies engaging with this unit suffer -1 to morale tests and +1 wound from panic tests. So giving a unit potentially super vicious or mega vicious or whatever they call it. Okay? Chosen a steer. Stand your ground. Each time performs a melee attack on this unit. If this unit is only engaged with one enemy, they don't get charge, flank, or rear. So the old version of set for charge, not set for charge, I think it was called set defense. So the old version of set defense, but only working if it's one unit that you're engaged with.
Mm-hmm.
Spearwife Matriarch, Swift Retreat is exactly the same as what the old Spearwife Matriarch did. I think it is, in fact, I think it is identical. And then the Cave Dweller Alpha getting the Insight ability that we saw on the Harmer's Bannerman, but it loses the D3 auto wounds, which is, an objective buff. 5 attachments, Carlo, 5 1-point attachments. Which one of those stands out to you as being like, that is something I might pick? And which one is like, why on earth would I ever think of playing that attachment? It's a piece of shite. Any or not?
I feel like I could play the Cave Dweller Alpha.
Yeah.
Maybe. At a push. If I had to pick one, I'd pick the Cave Dweller Alpha. I'm never playing the Raid Leader. It doesn't work. I don't think. Not in reality. If you're forcing me to, I'm buying the Cave Dweller Alpha, but only because you forced me. Honestly, stick those 5 attachments in the game right now, as things are, and like I'm not buying them. What's changing? What's changing to make me want to buy these attachments? Nothing. Do you know what I mean? Like, if anything,
Raiders get
ways to
adaptive.
kill attachments just increased. Like my attachments became more at risk of dying. Okay, so we can set up these cool things where we can start swapping them around, moving them around. We can start giving their abilities to other people. Okay, it might maybe marginally increase their value, but you are sacrificing bad list building design to try and get these small wins that could happen based off some cards.
Mm-hmm. And you're gonna have to take them in raid. Yeah.
If you're forced to, yeah, I know you're forced to, but I'm not fielding raiders. Look at them, they're crap. Like, I'm not buying that for 4 points. We skipped over it, but I'm not having it. I don't want your adaptive and cowardly and other crap for 4 points. So, yeah, either they're gonna get a load of other named attachments which are great, and the free folk have a small chance, or that is the standard for what they can expect to get for a point. And based off Weeper, for 2, like he's not good for 2. I feel like they're just in trouble. Like the attachments don't save them.
So Richard's saying that intimidating presence is really good. It is on the Flayed Men, which is with the other unit we see it in, and a couple of attachments that might go in things like Bolton Blackguards. Now, the reason it's better in those units, guys, is those units are tankier, right? So the effect, that effect lasts longer. If this is a good ability, then you're just going to lose the unit that's got it. Right? And I'm telling you right now, but you can't just kill a unit because you've got to attack them with Horrific Visage. Yes, but the unit is completely weak to Archer Fire. It has nothing to do with archers. It cannot stop archers just shooting at it. And you remember that diversion tactics card that, at least if he shoots me I can move up? Doesn't work on range attacks. So, like,
yep.
Archers just are going to take those things apart. And before you say, are archers going to get picked? Yes, of course they are. Every unit, basically every army takes a unit of archers already. Why do we think that's going to change? That probably won't change, right? Combined arms forces is what we already see.
Because Targs are going to absolutely ruin them.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why it's going to change.
I know, right?
Targs are just going to one-shot these fuckers.
So
it's going to be the biggest hole in your army that ever existed. People in chat are saying skin changes. Yeah, of course. Like, by comparison to current skin changes at 1 point, I'm not buying any of them. I'm only buying skin changes.
Yep.
But skin changes they made a bit of a splash for a little while. Some people spammed them. Bear spam was a bit annoying. Eagles are powerful and useful. Wolves even have this really niche place. Some people have used wolves to decent effect now and again. But skin changes aren't that good, right? At one point. And they're significantly better than all 5 of them, in my opinion.
Definitely agree. Definitely agree. So I mean, if I was to sum it up, it's been about an hour now of talking about free folk. I am frustrated. I am frustrated, and I can't even pretend to hide that. There is some real positives, and I think we focus on perhaps the negatives a little bit. There are some real positives looking at just what they've seen on this page here. There's some things that I can take away and go, you know what, I can work with that. I can try and do things with it. But what I don't see is I don't see a coordinated game plan. I don't see a strategy by which I can then go about trying to win games with, and that is the issue. I can see the starts of strategies, like what I said with the Thens and how you're supposed to use the Thens. I spotted it kind of straight away, but I looked at it and think, I look at it and I think, yes, that's a strategy I can use. It's a tactic, but it's a bad one. Like, I don't want to be doing that in the game. That doesn't seem like it's a clever thing to do with how A Song of Ice and Fire is played.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the problem.
I see a whole set of meme tactics basically that your opponent, if they're actually worried about any of them, if they have any opinion on it, will just block you in some kind of way. I feel like I feel like it's it feels incredibly casual, and that like
Yeah,
they could be fun. People are talking about, oh, this is fun, moving these units about, giving other units their abilities and stuff like that. It could be fun to play. I'm not saying it's not going to be fun to play at like a really mediocre level, but these will not, in their current state, stand up to the rigors of competitive game. Like they
just
will
won't.
not be picked. They will not see play because they will not win games when your opponent understands what their weaknesses are or what their very few available tactics are to them, which seems to be like a house of cards of 5 different moving parts that all have to interact together. Just delete one of them and the whole thing falls apart.
Yeah. What was the strategy for? Sit there and auto-wound your opponent? Actually, no, Terror. That's what some people did. And actually, if you see the Trapper spam lists, they didn't do very well. The actual way to play Free Folk before was put pressure on your opponent by positional play and pushing them into the corner of the board. If you've ever seen me play games where I do well with Free Folk, and actually if you go back and watch games I've played previously where I don't do well, the games I do well are the games where I just run forward in a big tide, basically, and push bad positioning onto my opponent to make him have to worry about threats and different positioning problems, control the board by literal sheer weight of bodies, and using board control to win the game. Wounding the enemy was just a positive thing I could do in the meantime. It wasn't actually about how you won the game. It was about the control on the board that you were able to exert. Um, People who sat back with trappers and just sat there and went, "Oh, I'm just going to auto wound you to death," lost games. They didn't actually achieve anything because your opponent just goes, "Well, I'm just going to go and kill those units then because I've got this side of the board and I've got all this space to use. I'll just maneuver until I can kill you." Um, but yeah, my takeaway here is that I think Free Folk are going to be playable, but unfortunately, I think for those of you who wanted Free Folk to be fun to play against, I think that they're going to be massively negative play experience to play against when they work, because they only work when all these things go off. And if they are all going off, that's just not fun to play against at all. And if they are not good, then you're just not going to play against them because it's so
Mm-hmm.
hard to have to. The barrier to entry with Free Folk was already one of the biggest, except maybe neutrals with the way you basically couldn't buy them as a starter faction. The barrier to entry Free Folk is still going to be there. Free Folk for the longest period of time have been the lowest played faction, except neutrals, even in TTS. And only
Mm-hmm.
until very recently, with the resurgence of TTS tournaments, certain players propagating Free Folk as being you should run them, and as we get onto in the World Cup in a second, where eventually that leads to. Free Folk is still one of the lowest entry percentage rates across the board, and
Yeah.
I think that this is going to lower that percentage even further.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the truth.
Euron says that this is what a nerf rebalance is. Sure, yeah. Like, as
Yeah.
in, I absolutely didn't believe that Free Folk were going to survive as,
Oh no, I think you'd be
like
you'd be
one of a handful of competitive.
yeah.
No, that's not the right way to put it. There are a couple of competitive builds right now, and Free Folk is one of them. I didn't think that that build would survive the rebalance. That is, of course, Trapper insignificant spam and Raider spam. I think, as I said, ages and ages ago, right way back, there seems to be massive overcompensations going on, which is the things that were overplayed are being just made worthless. The things that were underplayed are being overtuned. And that's very, very apparent with the Targaryens at the moment. And this seems to be the counter side of that coin, which is what was viable in Free Folk is getting currently absolutely destroyed. The thing that we actually haven't touched upon as a whole roundup for these things, what hurts this Free Folk faction, deck, everything, way, 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 way more than anything else is they lost all of their movement mechanics outside of diversion tactics, which I don't believe is a very good card because of its extra stipulations. They've gone from being an aggressive, fast faction. Admittedly, you had mostly infantry, to now you're an infantry only faction, right? Who don't have access to cavalry outside of the mammoth, who either is still a movement nightmare or he's just not a factor, one of the two. If he's got that movement, he's incredibly important to your army and you can't leave home without it. But I just feel like they lost everything that was good about them and they've got nothing going for them right now. A couple of people have said that this feels like it's going to be the addition of like the haves and the haves nots. And it feels very, very much like Targaryens have the tools you need to win games. And so far, I haven't seen a single tool in Free Folk which is important to winning a game.
Mhm. Euron, you're saying there, I am going to challenge this. Free Folk players have to reinvent themselves. I was a Free Folk player too, we'll see. We'll still have to see Giant, Mammoth, and Bears. Yes, I mean, any new edition, you should always have to reinvent your strategies. That's just a given. I think the thing that I'm trying to say is, as a competitive player, though, like, I'm going to say something that I think a lot of people don't realize, Carlo, and I've had this conversation with a lot of people. Me and Carlo have really not played that many games of A Song of Ice and Fire compared to with some of the other players out there. There are probably people in chat who've played way more games than me and Carlo have. Most of mine and Carlo games, because the sites existed since a couple of months, well, maybe 6 months after we started playing, roughly, playing seriously anyway. The site has existed, and we use the old app, which I know some of the results won't come across. But I've got 71 games played on the stats site, with maybe, I'm going to say, upwards of 30 perhaps that weren't. So I'm going to say I played 100 games, give or take. Now, that's not all games, because some practice games and things aren't recorded as well. 100 games. Carlo, you're probably around the same amount, right?
Yeah,
because you've played in
probably.
less tournaments and things recently. 72 games, and I'd say probably maybe slightly more than me outside, maybe 40, 50, 110, 120 games.
Hard to say, yeah.
Yeah,
It's really hard to think how many games I played before I started tracking them. So
I know, but
yeah,
I'm thinking
definitely.
ballpark figures, right? And there are people
Yeah,
saying,
less than 200.
yeah,
Less than two.
and there are people out there saying, oh, I've played 3, 4, 500 games of this, and I was like, yeah, and like, me and Carlo don't play a lot of A Song of Ice and Fire because we've played a lot of other games, and I'm sure many people here have as well. You don't need to play the game to understand the game. And I think that that's a big thing. You need to think about situations by looking at the statistics and by looking at the things you see on stats cards and things like this, and understand which situations something is good and bad in. And this is why the whole taunt argument I have. I don't need to play Thens to know that taunt is bad, because I know that the way competitive people play makes the effect that taunt gives bad. That's got nothing to do with actually playing the game, and it's about what you would do from a competitive player seeing that on the other side of the board. And if your argument is, oh yeah, but they can't play around it, well then it's really bad negative play experience because your opponent can't play around it. That's terrible. So we don't play a lot. We watch a lot, we analyze a lot, we think a lot. And me and Carlos think a lot. I have spent the best part of the whole weekend just thinking about how I piece these things together. You know, um, you stay up at night and just I chat with random people who like people like Rossi and people
You
like
do
late into
chat
the
with a
night.
lot of random people.
Yeah, I do.
Mickey's always on Discord talking about a song of Ice and Fire.
Yeah, and I'm
It's
just like
sad.
proposing.
It's sad,
It
Mickey.
is, isn't it? It really is sad. But I just like talking to people and thinking about the game, constantly thinking about it all the time. Um, and this is where these things get to you. You're like, right, so how do I piece this together here? And it's like building a puzzle inside your head, right? And you do it so much, and it's really, really hard. Um, Deoxys, yeah, we do have to wait.
We'll see. We'll see what else
Yeah.
comes.
Um,
Just early predictions. I don't think things are going to be good for them. I
no.
don't think either mammoths are overpowered. Nobody likes them. Play against them, or they're not, and free folk are not in conversation as a powerful faction anymore.
Yeah. We'll see. I mean, you're not going to stop me running them. I've got a whole army here that I'm still going to run. I can guarantee you that when we go down to London GT in September, Carlo, that unless I really, really like the way that Greyjoys are looking, when they eventually arrive,
That's a
that I'll.
guarantee with a maybe kicker of maybe not a guarantee.
Well, it depends completely on whether or not Greyjoys are going to be fun or not. But I can probably honestly say, unless anything changes between now and then, I'll be playing Free Folk 100%. Unless the game is just that bad for me to play and just unenjoyable at the competitive level. And then you can take somebody who plays Free Folk for a living, well, not quite a living, but I really enjoy it. And if you're taking the heart and soul out of someone who's played Free Folk from day one, then you're fucked up, in my opinion. I've run 4 giants. I have run 4 giants. And,
Guys,
yeah,
Mickey, this chat from Mickey is way more positive than his initial reactions. You don't want to know where he was at when he first saw them. So who knows? In another week's time, you might be telling us they're good.
maybe I need to think about it more. Maybe I need to think about board positioning, or maybe I just need to know more about the Free Folk. Annoying thing though, completely aside about this reveal, we don't see a commander, which we have seen in other ones. Now I know Tormund came out as part of the commander reveal, so yeah, we still got a commander to play with. It's not like we haven't got any at all, but we haven't seen any more
No
NCUs. So we've only got Val,
No.
which was again revealed back in the day. This means that currently playing them is really hard because you've got to take Tormund, you've got to take Val. In the game I played against Gruselug, I literally used a blank 4-point NCU. If you actually want to know, he gave me Ygritte, but technically we know that Mance is 4 points. He's in the rulebook. His points cost is in the rulebook as 4 points. So I knew that I could run Mance at 4-point slot, but I don't know what he does, so I just have to pretend he does nothing. At least he gives me a feel for the deck. So anyway, moving on. Finally, we're finally at tournaments. But actually, I wanted to take a second. And do my thing that I was gonna do.
Give your thoughts and prayers to the Free Folk players. Is that what
No,
we're doing?
actually, no.
Oh, sorry, we're moving on.
Yeah. So
Take a moment.
I know, right? Pick a moment. No, I was talking with a guy on Discord. And a guy on Discord, it sounds really ominous, right? Really ominous. Who's this guy on Discord? Seen him around. He's just joined a load of Discords. LF12. I want to make sure that's the right number because it gets confusing for me. It is indeed LF12. LF12. And I thought, well, wouldn't it be awesome to have some people who comment a lot on the videos and things like that send me some pictures so I can do a little bit of a community spotlight, right? So LF12, in case you don't know, is Vlad. Vlad, who often comments on the chats here. I think he was here today. Yeah, exactly. And he was chatting. He just wanted to know how he could find out more about tournaments and things like that, and just chatting away and things. And he said he'd been painting up. He's only been painting for about a year, right, since lockdown. And I thought we'd just go through some of his cool little things, just quickly. Yeah. There's a
flawless segue, as always.
Flawless segue, as always. We see
Plus, Mickey doesn't really realize that I can't see the screen that he's putting up.
Then can't you
He's
literally
about to
see
ask
this?
me to comment on these things.
Yeah, you can literally see this. Oh dear, this is your fault for you having a bad computer. But we see the High Sentinel being propped up in this case by a couple of bottom blackguards with their Dreadfort captains, right, with the changed swords, with swords rather than the maces that they have normally. We've also got Ramsey and Theon with his Bolton Bastard Girls, which is, lovely as always to see. We've got more. We've got Bolton Cutthroats. He's got 3 units of Bolton Cutthroats, all really well painted, and he's got that colour of the flag just down, I think, to an absolute T. Love that. Love to see that. Flayed Men. Who doesn't love Flayed Men? They're coming back. 100% they're coming back. So it's good that he's got those up ready. And we see more, like, the whole kind of like roster there for his neutrals. More close-ups there of some Cutthroats as well. So I just wanted to... is working on Roos at the moment as well, the alt Roos, I think. I just wanted to give him a bit of a shout out to Vlad for obviously commenting, and he posts loads of stuff on his comments here today. You can see him in chat, and he comments a lot on the videos that we do, watches a lot of content. And I thought it would be really cool just to show some of the stuff he's been working on. He's only been painting a year, and you know what? The work he's done is really good for a year's work, and man's created some really good stuff.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
I've been painting for 20 years.
Yeah.
But, I don't paint often enough, so maybe I've only been painting for a year.
When you say you've been painting 20 years, you mean painting one mini for 20 years?
Yeah, I've been painting one miniature for about 20 years.
You're still on the spray coat, aren't you, at the start? But no, so it's a new thing that I wanted to kick off today, and I thought I'd do it with Vlad, and I said to Vlad, you've given me an idea. Each week I want to show some community work that someone is doing in the community here. So there's 23 viewers here right now. There's going to be way more people who probably watch this recorded. If you want to show some of your work on Tourney Ground, I will store it in a folder, and each week I will just pick someone to show some work off, and we'll throw it up here. So there you go. There's thanks to Vlad for the great idea. And these are just his latest stuff. He did say he got loads of cool Stark and Lannisters as well. But yeah, there we go. So if anyone does want to send me some pictures of things they want to go up, yeah.
There aren't any cool Starks.
There are some cool Starks. Tully Swan ships.
Great axes are actually beautiful miniatures. So are the Berserkers, really.
The Tully Cav.
Tully Cav, Tully Swordsman. Oh, yeah. They're really great models.
Anyway.
Yeah, Starkspawn Swords. Bit flat in the face.
And OP. Anyway, we will move on from that. But guys, if you want to send me anything that you want to have and get a shout out for some of the work that you're doing, let me know. 100%, just drop me a Discord with some images on, and I'll include them in the next episode of Tourney Ground, because why not? All right then, we will end that one there now for that, and we will go back to the World Cup, Carlo. The World Cup. Right, let's just have a quick reminder to people of the bracket. We have seen, we've actually seen a couple of these games already go ahead. People might know that because, well, yesterday we were streaming them here because of the technical issue.
Game yesterday.
Wasn't it? So, the bracket as is. We see, starting from top left, walking down, Deoxys versus Rohan. Endline versus myself, Bilton Skincare versus Larks, Malleus versus Jon Snow Groupie, e.g. Brett Lampher, Ardeep Math versus Masara, e.g. Forioku, Winter is Coming Tom versus Claw, Bizonko versus Tobho Mott, and Zero Talk versus Rossi. Okay, these are the games we've already seen some played. So, trigger warning, guys, if any of you have not seen the game from yesterday or do not want your results spoiled for whatever reason, mute us now. You might even need to turn your head away from the screen because you might see the results. But we have already seen some games played. We have already seen Zero Talk versus Rossi in a long game, quite arduous, quite close game, where Zero Talk with Mother Dragons eventually beat Rossi's Night's Watch. I believe we've also seen the result of Tom Winter is Coming versus Claw, where Winter is Coming's Free Folk beat out Claw's Night's Watch as well. I think those are the only 2 games we've seen.
That would be 100% of the Night's Watch players out of the tournament then.
Yes, it would be, wouldn't it? Now, I did say, we could obviously look at it and we can talk about all that, but we've got to look at the actual units that people are running, the actual breakdown in the factions. Okay? So... yeah. Let's jump into the stats straight away, okay? 1664 average player ranking, which is slightly higher than Masters, right?
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah,
Yep.
so slightly
10
higher
points
ranking
higher
than
than
the
that Masters.
Masters was. So it's
Highest rated tournament ever been on the site.
yep. So it's roughly the same quality though as the Masters was. So that's the important takeaway there. Faction breakdowns, we see 25% Starks, so a reduction in the Stark entries. 6%
Yep.
Lannisters, one Lannister. My opponent N-line. Two Night's Watch players at 13%, 12.5 technically with rounding, and that is what is it? Two Night's Watch players that are both lost. There's a
Yep.
thing.
They're
We
all gone.
see three Targaryen players, and we'll look at those lists in a second. And we see
Yep.
38% free folk. The big one here is the free folk entries have actually gone up, right? Starks have reduced, and free
Yep.
folk have gone up, which is weird.
Can I just check while we're at it?
Yeah.
Look, I know nobody took me up on the bet, but I'm pretty sure Baratheons aren't going to win the World Cup, guys.
Actually, that's not true, right? There is a method. There is a way that Baratheons can win the World Cup. So, Baratheons can win the World Cup because Carlo said that if there is a 0-0 draw with no points killed that is not decided by points on the table in the first round in Fire and Blood, that he would enter the tournament in that spot, or that someone would. Yeah, both of those players would get knocked out, and he would just take another player and add them in. Right? That's basically exactly what Carlo said.
All right,
I'm
you got
making
my
a little bit up
promise
there.
here.
Right?
If it happens, I will play Baratheons.
He will play Baratheon. There you go, guys. So there is a route. There is a route by which Baratheons can still win.
Won't win the World Cup.
No, they won't. They won't. But there is a route anyway.
But no, it's super interesting. So
Yeah.
what we see off the top of my head, we had Ardit Math, who
Mm,
was playing Baratheons, and he switched to Free Folk.
Yep.
We saw Rossi, who was playing Starks. He switched to Night's Watch.
Yep.
We only had one Night's Watch qualifier and one Lannister qualifier. They both stuck with them. And then I believe we've had also Bolton Skincare has switched from Starks to the Free Folk.
Other way around. Free folk to Starks.
Quite interesting swaps.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting that we've seen this migration towards the Free Folk. I still believe that Free Folk are always the bridesmaid, never the bride. I think they'll make it to the final. I don't think they'll win. That's still just my gut feeling that they just like got this extra chunk. It obviously gives them more opportunities to win, but I still feel like Starks take it. I'm still going to bet on a Stark, even though it's only 25% of the entry. I think it's really telling. I almost want. It's bad to say. I almost want the Lannister player to end line. It's bad as particularly because it's you who's playing him. I want him to lose in the first round because I believe that Starks, Free Folk, and MOD are the only three competitive things right now, and that would just be very telling of what I believe is the true state of the game.
Yeah, definitely. I do think it's worth noting. I am playing Inline this week, and he is running Tyrion. He's actually got taken Tyrion twice. So I know I'm going to be playing into Tyrion, and Tyrion is one of those hit or miss commanders, right? There's a reason he's rated so highly in the stats site. If Tyrion goes off, Tyrion usually goes off big. If he doesn't go off, he can be a bit of a damp squib and can lose games. But Tyrion is a very strong commander, and he goes off a lot more than he doesn't.
It's not a matchup I'd be looking forward to. I think he's definitely a powerful commander, and he's one of the most unpredictable commanders. You never quite know what he's going to do. You got to work around his cards a lot. He definitely has a place towards the top, but I think that like the game sort of moved away from him a bit. The game's moved away from the Lannisters and their lower activation count. As long as they're not running Mountain That Rides, I don't think they're really in the discussion for being properly powerful. But it is great when a player shows that even though they're not considered high on the power rankings necessarily, I mean, Tyrion's still considered a top 10 commander. He's still up there, but he showed that if you're dedicated to the faction, then you can still do very, very well with them. But I actually, I think it makes the arguments that we make so much simpler if if players stop outperforming with their niche picks based on their skill level, which I think is what really starts to come to the fore in an event like this, where everybody's got a very high skill level, and it's really down to the margins that your army list is built on and that your
Yeah.
faction plays on, and the strength of your deck. And that's the thing that we discuss the most. We're not discussing games where anybody can win. I took the lowest rated commander, Stannis Baratheon, rightful heir, and I won a game this week. Like, he can win. Him being bottom doesn't mean he can't win, but he's got a much lower chance of winning if played at a very, very high level, just because the margins are so small. And I
Definitely.
think that the margins are small for Lannisters, and I think the margins are small for everybody except Starks, Free Folk, and MOD, and that's where we're at.
Yep. Definitely agree. Jox is saying since it's Fire and Blood, he also favors Endline. Yeah, Fire and Blood is I was actually talking the night of submission, before submission, I can't remember. I was talking with Weasel Charles about Free Folk lists, and I thought, like, what do I do in the case of Fire and Blood coming up? How do I play it? And I had to think about how I was going to play it. And I was still had chance to change my lists and submit. I haven't even submitted my list at this point, actually. Um, and I did think, well, the Fire and Blood matchup is going to be hard. The Fire and Blood matchup is going to be difficult against what I thought was going to be a Tyrion High Sparrow matchup. I was almost convinced he was going to pick Tyrion regardless anyway. And then you see that he's got a Tyrion an anti Free Folk Tyrion list with all the tech in it, with Varys, with Walder. I mean, I'm not going to guess here right now and say, oh, Endline, is that what you're paying for him to tell me? But I'm pretty convinced that's the list he's going to run. I don't see why you wouldn't.
Yeah, Varys super, super important against Styre and Mance to stop the tokens build up, stopping the zones. Big value in Varys in general across the board. But Walder becomes incredibly important to shut off that insignificant at certain key times. And he just gets his value back at 5 points. He can just score VPs. He can score you 2 VPs easy over the game, and that's worth the 5 points.
Yeah, definitely. Did I know it was Fire and Blood first round? No. Did not know Fire and Blood first round. I
randomly
thought
drawn from all 9 of the competitive game modes.
it was
They're
the
all in the
only
mix.
game mode that I thought would come up, which would massively throw a spanner in the works of me being able to do what I wanted to do. Because it's the only game mode where I can't control the game in the way that I want to. So yeah, that's just, and that was pure luck that it came out, and bad luck at that. You know what I mean? I would rather it didn't come out. But yeah, gonna have to put some work in probably.
And line in the chat saying it's conspiracy. Yeah, exactly. I always conspire to knock Mickey out.
He actually does.
I do everything I can to make Mickey look bad.
He actually does, and this is not a lie. We are not friends outside of Tourney chat.
We're definitely not friends when we play each other in tournaments either.
Oh god,
I'm
no.
a right bastard to him.
He is. Oh my god. I haven't played you in real life yet for like a year now. I reckon whether or not any of your bullshit will work on me anymore. I don't think it will.
Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah, he basically sits there and just abuses my family members as I'm like, calls me short because I am. And it really riles me up when I play him physically. No,
Mind games.
Mind games, right? Anyway, so yeah, that's the tournament. Endline beat my Free Folk round 1 of qualifiers from Tywin and Walder pop-offs to shut off Insig. Yeah, but you're crap, Chris. Anyway, no. So we see the results there. We've only had one game actually submitted, which was the Winter is Coming versus Claw game. The Rossi game is yet to go in. My number 0 fan until I play. Yeah. So
Fire and Blood, I know a lot of people are kind of a little bit unhappy about the game mode in general. I think it brings balance to the game. I think it's an important balance point around the fact that the activation count is generally the most important part, but it's one of the few times when activation count has an advantage. It's definitely the best game mode that Endline could have drawn, particularly into Free Folk, in my opinion. Like, it doesn't get better than Fire and Blood. He possibly even could be considered the favorite in your game. I don't think he goes past that point. Everybody else is we have a Mother of Dragons mirror, right?
Yeah, we do.
Down in
Bazonka
one corner.
versus Tobo.
Exactly, and the winner of that takes on the winner of Rossi and Zero Talk. Also, the other Mother of Dragon down in that corner. Everybody else is pretty much, because the Night's Watch have been knocked out, Stark mirrors or Free Folk mirrors or Starks into Free Folk. Right? That is what the game is going to be. That's who's going to determine who goes into the final. Really, we'll see if Endline can outperform my expectations.
Do you know what's really sad? I absolutely love the Free Folk mirror, and unless Deoxys gets beaten in round 1, I am probably not going to get to play a Free Folk mirror until at least round 3, when it literally could be anything, right? Assuming I win my games, of course, as well. And that makes me really sad. It makes me sad that I don't get to play my favorite matchup at a high level, playing against other apparently good Free Folk players, and seeing where it stands, because I think the mirrors are the most important matchups to play, and definitely a mark of understanding of the game.
Interestingly, I've just double checked, and I got it wrong. Bolton Skincare has actually switched from Free Folk in the
Yeah,
qualifier
to
into
Starks.
Starks in the
Yeah.
final.
I did tell you that.
Which is interesting. It must mean that other people have swapped the opposite way, because I'm sure the numbers don't work out otherwise.
No, we
Possibly
had
Masara.
no.
Has Masara gone the opposite way? Was he
Yes,
Starks originally, and now he's gone to Free Folk?
yes, and we also had Rohan replace Lord Commander Bob, so we had effectively a Stark drop out into a Free Folk come in. So yeah, that's where it changes. So Rohan there, getting the Deoxys draw.
And yeah, Grusilog, just count yourself lucky that you managed to save yourself that defeat to Deoxys, who I still, I still back him. I still back him as the tournament winner myself. I think honestly, if we can't go into all of it. We've already been here for like nearly coming on 2 hours, but there's some really, really interesting things going on. Larks has, he abandoned his double Howland, his Howland with 4 NCUs. He took a punt on it, and it's interesting that he tried something. He's gone back to a more traditional Howland Rob, and more specifically, he's also picked up the Stonecrow Dervishes with the Kranigman in. He's kind of copied a bit of tech there off of Deoxys. So, we'll see whether or not he does as well with them as Deoxys did as well. There are other things going on. It was super, super interesting that Rossi switched over to Night's Watch in a corner of the bracket, which is full of Mother of Dragons. And I do actually believe that the list he created is one of the best things that could possibly play into Mother of Dragons. We discussed it heavily when we commentated that game, but it's one of the better options you can have if you tailor your list right for it, but it has to be very specifically tailored. And if you watch the game, you'll still see it comes down to the narrowest, thinnest margins. It was a very tactical, close game. But all the Night's Watch are out. But I do really applaud his effort for understanding the corner of the bracket that he was in, the lists that he would play into, and then it might be in his benefit to switch to a different faction. And I always intended for players to be able to do that, moving from the regionals to the finals. I think that it shows great individual player skill to be able to make decisions like that. It shows a deep understanding of the game, and that's what I'm always trying to elevate and promote. Is you get a good ranking by having a deep, complete understanding of the game. You don't get a good ranking by putting Starks on the table and winning 5 times over against somebody crap. You don't get it for just playing Mother of Dragons the same as everybody else.
Yeah, definitely. So that kind of, I guess that ends our discussion for this week, right? We've got nothing much to talk about aside from tournaments, other ones pushing up. There is, of course, the tournament happening in 26 days from now in Indy, the Adepticon replacement. I know Brett's, inverted commas, running it, but it's actually being run by other people. Yeah, obviously get yourself, if you are in the States and you can travel to Indy, COVID safe and all that. Maybe sign yourself up for that event. We've had the Bash TTS event kickoff, Carlo, and I know we'll be visiting that certainly once that gets a little bit more mileage. It only started on Friday, didn't it?
Yeah.
But I know that you've taken your first win
Little
there.
sprinkling of the UK scene, trying to get its act together, which of course is, all leading up towards the much bigger event of the UK GT.
Yeah,
If you
the
weren't here at
UK
the
Grand
start,
Tournament.
it's going to be amazing.
It is, hopefully. Hopefully we're gonna make it amazing when we actually get our acting gear and start being allowed to go outside again. So yeah, the London GT, as I said, Elite Teddy running it with obviously support from us and well, I say us meaning Stats and NRG. And we'll take it from there. We will take it from there, and we will see where things go. Thanks a lot for tuning
Deoxy says
in.
it's the last round of Welcome to 2021,
Is it?
which, yeah, that's
I have to
going
admit, it
into its fifth
confused me.
round, ELO rated event. Deoxys, pair of Lannisters up at the top, both running Tywin.
Yep.
Looking like a perennially underrated commander. Hopefully, he's getting some wins and pushing his ranking up based off that. Tywin Roos and a Tywin Gregor combo. Bloodraven, Deoxys, Jon Snow Groupie, R Deep Math, Claw. There's a lot of big players in this tournament, and they're all up towards the top of the event.
I think the most interesting thing there is Zero Talks right at the bottom playing Greyjoys. I bet you any money like he hasn't won a game. Nope. So Greyjoys playing into a load of factions and commanders, which should they, in theory, at the bottom end of 1.6. Oh wow, that just makes you sad about Greyjoys, doesn't it? Yeah, we'll check that out next week when it finally ends up and we get some final stats from it. The Slaughterhouse rules is still going on. There's a lot of discussion and kind of like stuff going on with the Slaughterhouse rules. The lists are obviously weird and wonderful because you're not playing, so it's really hard to get a gauge of what people are doing from here. So I recommend that you check out Sunday Slaughter, of course, and the guys over at Sunday Slaughter, who will no doubt be releasing a podcast in the next day or two, probably with some responses to some things we've said. I know Charles over there is a great Free Folk fan himself. So we'll see how that goes, and we'll obviously listen in to that because they're pretty good. So check out Sunday Slaughter and all the content that he's got coming out. I don't need to say that he's bigger than us, and you all know about him. Go check him out. He's amazing. But yeah, I think we'll leave it there then, Carlo. Okay, is that good for you?
Absolutely.
So just to
Sign up for
surprise
the GT.
everybody, sign up
Sooner
for
rather than later.
yes,
Sooner is better. It'll help the great event grow.
it will indeed. We will be back next week, the same time. We might have some streams going on between now and then of some World Cup games, and to play us out this week, I'm gonna just throw a slideshow of some of Vlad's work on, show what he's been working on to take us out of today's stream. So we'll catch you next week, guys. Take it easy.
Thanks for staying.